Good morning. Welcome to the 14th day of November. Hey, it's supermoon night. I don't know if you get a chance to get out tonight and take a look at it. It's going to be the biggest in many decades. I checked it out last night. It didn't seem appreciably larger, but definitely was big. So it wasn't quite full, but tonight's the night. So let's get on with it. This is the Good Life meditation for the 14th day, like I said before. This is an exercise that I do every morning to reaffirm my objectives and work on my principles. That's the area where the real effort takes place, is defining and maintaining those. And then state my plan for the day regarding my thoughts and actions. And of course, set the precedent, set expectations with the Rotten Day forecast. So let's get into it. The first part is the affirmation of human rights and human and civil rights. This is my reminder to, in the course of my decision making, to not do or say things which infringe on the rights of individuals. And protected groups sounds like a controversial term to say that in this less politically correct environment. But that's really what it is. A mature civilization protects the smaller groups from the will of the larger group. That's a mark of civilization, a mark of maturity in a civilization. And to that end, the country that I belong to, the United States of America, has developed legislation, codes, a law, guidelines in the form of our Constitution and Bill of Rights that do exactly that. So what I try to do in my life is keep those in mind. Not all the details, but keep the general principle in mind as I make my decisions and as I form my principles. Not that I have that much power over anything that I can affect that, but as a voter, as a responsible member of society who contributes to this process, it is important. So I leverage the code of my country, which I think is about as good as it gets at this stage of our species development. The next piece of this is a statement of my 3 objectives. First of those is the development and maintenance of good, sound principles. These are the 9 that I'll come to in just a moment. This is a task that I give myself every day, to not take my principles for granted. They're not thou shalt. They are I think I shoulds, based on the fact that I, for the most part, developed them on my own, and certainly with input from elsewhere, but largely with through my own through the gauntlet of my own experience. And then I lay upon myself the responsibility to care for their care and maintenance. They're like houseplants in a way. I have a little garden of houseplants, which are principles that surround me, and I have to water them and care for them, and maybe even speak some gentle words to them. Oh, there's the supermoon back there. Wow. Maybe you can see it over my shoulder, maybe not. The second principle is the second objective, 2, is the execution of good emotional reactions. Not letting like this guy driving by at 100 miles an hour on this street right here, not letting my foot fall press to the bottom of the panel there, and he gets stuck at a red light, risking his life and ours for no better reason than the running away with his emotion, the emotion to want to seeking after that thrill. I'm going to catch up with him now. The pulsing thrill of driving fast. Such an immature and nonsensical thing to do. And consuming there he goes again. Consuming his emotion, executing his emotions poorly. He feels that rise of one. I'm going to drive fast, and doesn't give it a second thought and just goes for it. Less than mature use of life. Wow, what if you guys can see the supermoon off there in the distance? There's the big hangars here, World War II era hangars from here in Tustin. There's the supermoon. Maybe you can see it. Not the smartest thing in the world either, taking the phone like that, but I think I did that all right. But God, in hindsight, that probably wouldn't have been it. That's an example there, right? You know, that was a poor example. That's me running away with my emotions. I had saw the supermoon. I thought I saw a chance to show it to you, and I just ran with it and grabbed the camera and showed it to you, which was a poor decision on my part. No different than the man driving fast behind me. So even when I strive so hard to get on top of this stuff, I still fall between the cracks. Okay, well, starting this day off on uneven footing, clearly. Hypocritical footing, no less. So, with the execution of good emotions, I'll talk more about that when I get to the principle of temperance. And finally, the third objective is the performance of good actions. Doing good things. Now, this isn't willy-nilly. What it is, the good things are defined as activities and decisions that are in keeping with and furthering the principles that I'm going to talk about shortly. That would be the description of good action. So it's not just laying those principles out and then letting them sit there nicely like the houseplants, all decorative, but actually doing something with them. What would you do with houseplants? I don't know, lay them around the room. Walk them, take them for a walk. I don't know. The analogy falls apart right there. But you know, it's the difference between owning a tool, creating a tool, and using the tool. I guess that's the problem. Plants aren't tools. Well, maybe they could be tools to well-being, right? Yeah. Lay your house plants out in a nice arrangement, and makes things better, maybe. So let's get on now to the 9 principles. The first of these is the atomic principle. The atomic principle simply states that the universe is made of atoms, which are in turn formed of subatomic particles, which are made of even smaller things, ultimately a frozen form of energy, which in turn the universe energy pervades the universe. And perhaps the cosmos itself, cosmos being the larger everything. What was it in the restaurant at the end of the universe? You know, there was it was Carlos Castaneda's series, the Don Juan series, the tonal and the novel. The tonal is life, the universe, and absolutely life, the universe, and everything, and the novel was everything else. But that's stepping a little further into wooey stuff than I like. So I'll let that just lay right there. But kind of fits. You know, we have the universe, which is everything that we know and we can know, apparently. And then the cosmos may be everything else, including the stuff that we don't know. And the stuff beyond the Planck moment before the universe came into existence. The instantiation of our universe. Read some interesting stuff over the weekend, some interesting science literature about the infinite expansion of the cosmos, and the universe is bubbling into existence when that expansion slows down bits and pieces here. It's like falling off the side. How they know that, I have no idea. This is speculative stuff, of course, but interesting speculation. Got to treat it a little bit like science fiction in a way. Which is fun stuff, but taken with a grain of salt. I digress. Let's move on now to the second principle, which is the principle of nature. Everything in the universe has some nature about itself. And yesterday's or 2 days ago, the video I made, I forgot, it just skipped right over the nature. I got distracted by something else and skipped right over it. But for example, a stone has a particular nature. It's the one I like to use. It tends to be firm, substantial in being weighty, immobile under its own right. Although it will fall to gravity, and it is subjected to weathering, but it doesn't have any consciousness or sentience that we're aware of, and typically tends to have some composition based on the minerals of which it's made, and the atoms of which it's made. And whereas a water has its own nature, it tends to be a fluid, and as such flows, and is amiable to fit into whatever body or whatever crevice or whatever hole it fits. It flows into. It seeks as does a rock. It seeks to go towards gravity wells and the like, and it has the consistency or the character of being wet. So too do animals. Animals have their particular nature. Dogs and cats each have their particular nature that you can identify and can tabulate, but I think you're all aware of that. Likewise, human beings, we have a particular nature. One of those, part of our nature is the ability to use our brains to think and understand the world and solve problems, and our grasping hands and our opposable thumbs to make tools and do things with the world in that way. Just adjust this a little bit. So too do individuals have natures. You and I each have our own particular nature. It's within my nature, for example, to walk alone in wild places, to think, and to periodically turn the camera on. Your nature may be something else. These natures tend to develop as we grow. We're not necessarily born with them, although in some cases we are. But in many ways, our nature develops and can be cultivated and refined. And it's worthwhile to review what our nature is at every opportunity, every day, for example. The third principle is the social principle. Human beings are social animals. We need one another to get by, and our best ends are social ends. Social good. When we pursue social good, it's a very refined and distilled form of good. You get a lot out of it. It's very compact, and it's a worthwhile thing to make. You get great mileage out of it, versus the good that we do for ourselves has a tendency to have a more limited scope of application. And so I try to remind myself to pursue social good whenever possible, including ahead of my own good. Although it's in the interest of the social good for me to pursue my own good as well, at least to the point that I'm reminding myself to live according to my nature, because I can be a better vehicle for a better tool for society when I'm doing so. 4, the principle of temperance. Temperance simply means to withhold consumption. And we think of temperance as, for example, the teetotaler who doesn't drink alcohol, or someone who avoids tobacco or gambling, or whatever the heck may be. Usually we associate it with in some way with a vice. So temperance with regard to the vice that calls us and tempts us. But it's more than that. Temperance is the controlled consumption of just about anything. For example, buying this Prius is a form of temperance. It's not the best. I do love it now, but I would love to have a Mustang. But this doesn't seem like a good idea in a world where that's slowly getting warmer, and where there's certainly better uses of the resource. So I get a Prius that saves me money and allows more resources to be diverted where they're needed. That's a form of temperance. Temperance also applies. You take it away from the appetites of food, drink, work, play, sex, things like that, to the appetites of the emotions. When we're through the course of the day, various emotions will rise up. The impulse, or emotions or impulse. The impulse or the emotion of anger, of desire, of frustration, whatever the case may be. And a temperate human will nibble away at that and assess it, and then make a decision based on that assessment, a reasoned decision, often on the fly, kind of spontaneous, spurious. It's got to be fast sometimes, because these things can overwhelm you quickly, and then executes accordingly, restraining themselves through the process. It takes great restraint to, for example, withhold the foot from the accelerator or withhold the hand from the camera to show you the super move. And I don't always succeed at that, but I'm working on it. Likewise, it takes restraint when I feel frustration. Maybe if my wife and I have a disagreement, and I feel the frustration to want to say something mean or something like that, to let out some emotion, to instead sample that emotion and use that power instead to restrain myself. And boy, do you get good dividends out of that if you can do that. And it is indeed possible. And it doesn't bottle the stuff up. It takes great will great expensive energy to exercise restraint, to exercise temperance. 5, the principle of agency and indifference. Agency refers to any life form. Some people describe agency as life forms that are thinking life forms, but I'll extend it beyond that. I consider plants agents too. Bacteria are agents. Certainly, dogs, cats, monkeys, chimps, houseflies, you and me, we're all agents as well. And agency is the thing that gives evidence of itself through the universe. Everything around me that I'm in right now, this road, those signs, airplanes flying up there, all these cars are all artifacts of agency. And it's a comforting thing to see all this, because they remind me that I'm a social animal and that I'm surrounded by society and participating in that. Go out into the wilderness where you can subtract out the agency, especially a very desolate wilderness like the volcano wilderness, or even the deep water wilds, the pediment plain. I'm saying it right? Leading up to it, that exposed rock surface. It's almost like a moonscape or a Marscape with very few plants, just rocks that have been sitting there for tens of thousands of years, weathering away. That's where there's little agency. And what we meet there is the great indifference, which is what you're left with when there's no agency. It's what most of the universe appears to be, which is an agentless existence. If I do say so myself, I like the way that came out, an agentless existence, which we then are uncomfortable with, because what the heck, what do we do with that? It's a place that's something that doesn't care. So doesn't give a dang whether we live or die. So what we do when we don't have all this agency around us, that's why it's so comforting to be in a situation like I'm in right now. When we don't have that, we manufacture agency out of thin air by applying our idea of agency to the things that don't have it. So those that go out into a desert landscape and look across the wastes and say, witness the hand of God. That's simply taking a giant broad brush and painting over the entire indifference with a veneer of contrived agency. It's a very comforting thing, but that in no way speaks to whether it's true. And we can get on our whole lives like that, covering up, plastering over the indifference with a comforting story that there's meaning larger than ourselves. 6, the best seat in the house. The best seat in the house is a reminder to myself that instead of wanting to be somewhere else, have a different job, be in a different life circumstance, I'd rather not want to be someone else, or not want to have a different job or be in a different circumstance. An example came up yesterday. I was in line at carrying a big jug of water, 2 of them actually, 2 for $5 at the Rite Aid. So I was carrying them in my arms, and I'm standing there in line at Rite Aid, and they were taking a long time. Rite Aid's a drugstore here in America, and I found myself standing there, and I was like, oh man, I wish they'd hurry up because this is really heavy, which is me wanting to be somewhere else or wanting to expedite it in a circumstance that I really can't do much about. They're working as fast as they can, right? Those checkers, there were 2 checkers, which was a reasonable amount. It was just, I was carrying a heavy load, and I guess I could have got a shopping cart. There's things I could have done. But instead, what I asked myself to do was, you know what? I'd rather not want to be somewhere else. What if I could do that? What if I could get my mind into a position of not wanting this line to necessarily go faster, or the checkers to work faster, or to me to have chosen a shopping cart or whatever, but to just simply be all right with standing there, holding those two waters. So I did that, and I just kind of let my mind go with some gentle thoughts. And it sounds kind of like you're kind of convincing yourself. I was convincing myself just to make do, and maybe that's it. But sometimes that's what it takes. There are circumstances. The Stoic perspective, of course, offers that there are circumstances outside of our control. In fact, the only thing that we ever really can control is how we respond to the universe, our reactions, our emotional reactions. So in this case, I was, taking control of my emotional reactions and not wishing to be anywhere else other than where I was. And of course, the line moved forward, and I checked out, and I had a little less stress. So there's an example of it. The best seat in the house, wherever I am at any point in the day, even if I'm the image I like to imagine as I go to a rusty, dirty, old, splintery outhouse, and I sit down on the toilet, and it breaks through because it's an old Wild West toilet, and I start plunging into the gutter yuck below, and all the while I'm going down, I'm thinking the best seat in the house. It's absurd on its surface, but I think it's there's a telling lesson for myself, and an objective for myself in there. Next, the principle of reason. Reason is the governing faculty. It is the thing by which we make sense of the world. We look at all the facts, we catalog them, we develop arguments, syllogisms that yield conclusions, which in turn can be used to make predictions about how the universe should work. And then we just simply see if those predictions are accurate, and if so, then maybe tell ourselves that maybe we're cautiously that maybe we're onto something, but we continue our investigations, and then to proceed from there. And if they're wrong, then it's time to gather more facts and work on better arguments. Reason is the arbiter of truth. 8, the principle of virtue. Virtue is the purpose of life. It is the thing that we do to make our lives meaningful. We can indeed create meaning for ourselves in a universe that's indifferent. It's up to us to develop a worthwhile meaning to our lives and a purpose for our living. Pardon me. We could. There's plenty of groups out there that are happy, and philosophies out there that are happy to offer you meaning. Held on high, called down from above. Then you're welcome to do that, but I'm hesitant with those because they're prescribed, they're codified, they're dogma. Dogma is not subject to discussion. Dogma simply must be obeyed, and often at the edge of the sword, if no other way. The arguments that I propose through that you develop and I develop through principles is something that you can argue and haggle over with other people, and thus improving your principles along the way. That's why I prefer this methodology. And for me, the end of life, the purpose of life, is virtue, which I've defined as simply improving the state of being for ourselves and others, making things better. This is you can have a very objective measures. For example, improved healthier, more sanitary food, clean drinking water, improved and more accessible education a better communication between individuals, the sexes, races, countries, improved climate health of our natural environment for the benefit of all of us. All of these things are very tangible, measurable, objective things that make life better for each of us and for all of us. And what's better is that we can argue about it. We can talk about climate change and get down to an argument and have or discussion, better yet, and actually lay out the facts and go over it. And if I can convince you of my point, then we can work together. Vice versa, if you convince me, then we can do it. Versus a dogma where I have a set of thou shalts and you have a set of thou shalts. There's no compromise there. There's only conflict and defeat and conquest. So that's what virtue is: the objective improvement of the well-being of individuals, societies, and the planet in general. And finally, the last one, the number 9, willful time management. Willful time management is the considered use of our time. And I'm going fast because I want to finish by 30 before I run out of memory. Willful time management is the conscientious use of the time that we have left. And I apportion that out on a day-by-day basis. It would be nice to get that down to an hour-by-hour basis, but I've got too much stuff to think about at work. So I do it on a day-to-day basis. So there are that takes two flavors. The first, willful time management, is that I'm going to talk about my thought plan for the day, and then second, my action plan. My thought plan is as follows. Before breakfast, I want to collect my thoughts, which I'm doing basically right now. And as I was making my breakfast, I was thinking some things over. I was thinking about listening to some YouTube video about a particular form of argumentation that was interesting. But after that, so first one is to collect my thoughts before breakfast. 2, compose my thoughts over lunch. Actually sit down at lunch and write things out. 3, compile and record and maybe upload my thoughts after dinner in time for death by bed. So with death at the end, there's the prod, right, to really do this in earnest. So compose my thoughts, collect my thoughts, collect my thoughts, compose my thoughts, record my thoughts, and then die. That's my thought plan. My action plan, well, I guess dying is an action. My action plan for today. This changes day to day, but largely it stays the same. Keep your hands on the wheel. So I get up in the I've got up in the morning. I will had a good, healthy breakfast. I am now making my way to work, keeping my hands on the wheel. I'm going to be a safe driver all the way there. When I get there, I'm going to lay out, as I fire up my computers and clean off my desk space. I do that every morning. I'm going to lay out on a piece of paper my plan for what I'm going to do work-wise today. I don't have any meetings today. It's a Monday, which is kind of nice. So instead, I'm going to be work on the Windows 10 project. Get the plan for tomorrow's meeting for that in order. I'm going to see what's going on with the FCOP project that I'm working on. Then we'll see what's going on with the SharePoint tenant migration project. These are some of the projects that I'm managing. And basically plan out my day. I also have to compile together the hardware that we need for the testing phase of the Windows 10 image that we're developing. And then I'm going to also get through my email, which shouldn't be much because Friday was a holiday. Everybody was off, so there shouldn't be too much email. I should be caught up. It should be a pretty good day work-wise, but that's when I get into the last part, the rotten day forecast. I'll talk about that in just a second. That's a tricky part. Thinking you're going to have a good day is setting yourself up for a fall. Beyond that, I'm going to make sure I do spend time during lunch break writing out my thoughts as I do in my Good Life meditation, the document that I keep. If I have some time, I'm going to do a little reading as well, maybe while I'm walking during my breaks. I'll catch up with some of the people I need to catch up with. When I get home tonight, I'll do my swim, probably do 50 laps tonight, 40 laps, what do you call this, the crawl, 10 laps, the breaststroke, and maybe if I can do an extra bonus 10 underwater laps as well. It's getting a little tricky because the water's getting cold. And then I'll go and have a nice dinner with my family, help my daughter with her homework, maybe watch a video with my wife, and then take a shower in time for bed and ready for death. Okay, now the last piece of this, the rotten day forecast. I need to explain what this is. The rotten day forecast is setting low expectations for the day. You know, one of the things that gets us through the course of the day is when things happen, we have an idea about how things are going to work out. Remember I said, oh, it's Monday, I don't have a lot of meetings, I'm going to have a great day, I'm going to get a lot of focus. That's when usually the boss shows up at the cube unexpectedly, the email's there from senior management asking me to start a new project, whatever the heck, something ambushes me, right? So I'm going to start off with that way, and I start off with the worst things possible. For example, today's the day that my daughter will die, and my wife will die, and I'll lose my job, and I'll be forced to figure out a new way to support my family. I'm going to be diagnosed with a bad illness. my car is going to break down. I am going to be ambushed at work. I'm going to have a new project come my way that I didn't expect. Somebody's going to, ambush me with an immediate requirement that was ridiculous, that they should have thought of beforehand, but I'm going to have to do that right away. Always more on my plate than I can handle. I'm going to meet people who are mean, and selfish, and vain, and basically very difficult folks to deal with. In addition to all my lovely coworkers, I'm going to have struggle with the words when I write down my good life meditation words for the day. I'm going to struggle with it. I'm going to have problems with the computers. And when I get home, dinner, my wife's not going to feel good, and I'll have to go get dinner, prepare dinner stuff, which I really don't mind because when she's not feeling good, it's not a problem. The water's going to be really cold in the pool when I go swimming. All these first world problems, right? And then I'll have a bad night's sleep. Oh, and of course then I'm going to die. So there, properly set low expectations. You can only get better from there, right? So here we go. Let's start beginning. I'm going to get out there. Let's begin executing my principles right now. After those setting after those objectives, I'm going to make it a great day and a good life. And I hope you do the same. Take care, everybody. Thanks for watching. Just a little over 30 minutes. Take care.